Good morning. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Top of the stories this morning was a closure on I-24 westbound. It has just in the past couple of moments been cleared. It was a serious crash overnight there. It's just past I-840, and it was very slow this morning up to Almaville Road. It appears that's where the crash was. Now, they've cleared it, but it's still very slow there this morning, and it's also very foggy this morning in some spots. You'll need to deal with that widespread dense fog in some places this morning. And we've got spotty thunderstorms today and tomorrow, and then some potentially severe thunderstorms on Wednesday.
By far, Wednesday is the more widespread and the higher severe weather threat. It's a 2 out of 5 on that scale across all of Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky. So this will definitely be a day we have to watch very closely.
Yeah, we sure will. Stefano says those storms will arrive in the afternoon and the evening hours, and we will continue following them. News from Operation Epic Fury this morning. A 7th U.S. service member has been killed in action in the Middle East. Also, Iran has named the Ayatollah's son as that country's new leader. It's a development that President Trump has already said would not be acceptable. And U.S. and Israeli forces have begun a campaign to take out Iran's energy infrastructure.
Israel saying it has hit multiple oil refineries. Iran's foreign minister saying these attacks mount to, quote, nothing less than intentional chemical warfare against Iranian citizens. Iran retaliating against these attacks, apologizing to its neighbors, promising to stop any further fighting unless Iran is attacked first. But hours after that apology, strikes rained down in several Gulf countries.
That's ABC's Tom Sufi Burridge reporting. Immigration officials are standing by the detention of a Nashville Spanish station news reporter. Last Wednesday, a Stephanie Rodriguez and her husband were in a car when ICE agents surrounded it and removed her. They say she missed 2 appointments regarding her application for asylum. But her husband says they were told not to show up until March 17th.
And the only reason we didn't go to a date that they asked us to check in was because they told us not to. So why are we calling her an illegal alien?
That's him speaking with Channel 4. Now, in a statement, ICE said that the claims that they don't have a warrant are false. They say Rodriguez didn't leave the country when she was supposed to, and she's now in violation of the conditions of her visa. She's been held now in a detention facility in Alabama. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
The week ahead brings many more tea leaves for investors to read after a punishing week in which major stock indexes fell the most since last fall. Tuesday brings the Optimism Index by the National Federation of Independent Businesses. It's been down in recent months. Tuesday, how houses are moving. We'll see the February existing home sales. Wednesday brings the Consumer Price Index, telling us where inflation stands. This is probably the week's most critical report. Thursday brings housing starts and unemployment claims for the week, after Friday's report of big job losses last month. Earnings reports coming in this week. Oracle on Tuesday, Groupon on Wednesday, Adobe on Thursday. I'm Wayne Cabot, ABC News.
And stock futures way down again this morning. The Dow futures minus 511. That is your latest news. Your traffic is next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Got a dense fog advisory until 10 this morning. Be advised that it is really very foggy, pretty thick in some spots this morning. Westbound 24 in the Murfreesboro area, just past I-840. The crash there is cleaned up. Probably pretty still slow. Otherwise, on the major roads, looking good so far this morning. Also, just keep in mind, it's spring break for schools in Metro Nashville, Williamson County, and in Wilson County. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning to you, everyone. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. I mean, you should have already figured that out. But then, and your clock probably figured it out for you, or your iPhone did, one way or the other. But we are into that time now. And this is the Monday following the time change. Interesting day for Dan Mandis to take off, wouldn't you say? Just observing. If I were going to take a day off, the Monday after the time change, I think is the time that I would take that off. Hello, everyone. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis. We got Joan Jones in the newsroom. Good morning to you, Joan.
Hello there, and welcome to Brighton Early Mornings.
Yeah, yes,
Again.
I'm telling you, this is the hard one, isn't it?
If you're not used to it, I think, yeah.
If you're not, well, I'm not. I got unused to it quite easily when I left mornings years ago.
I bet.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Dan, by the way, is taking some vacation time to be with his family, and that is well-deserved. He's one of the hardest-working guys in all of broadcasting. So Dan will be back next week. I'll be here all this week filling in. Joan Jones will be in the newsroom, and Sam is pushing all the blinky buttons. So thank you very much for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis. If we're talking about the big stories of the day, I don't think you're going to find a bigger story that impacts people's lives more than the cost of gasoline and the cost of energy right now. And indeed, with what's going on in the Mideast, what's going on with Iran and the war there, the oil prices have gone up dramatically. I'm just looking at oil right now. Oil futures, about $100 for West Texas Intermediate, 103 for Brent. At one point today, it hit 110. West Texas Intermediate crude hit $110 a barrel. It has fallen back from that, but it is up dramatically as we witness what has happened. And what has happened in the Mideast is, in addition to the war, the Israelis took out some of Iran's refining capacity yesterday, something that perhaps the United States is not particularly thrilled about, but one way or the other they did, and that will mean that we are facing some higher gas prices. That's the bad news. I can guarantee you that the pumps will be more expensive. I can guarantee you that we have not seen the end of volatility in the oil market, oil and natural gas market. I think that's going to be the predominant story, but I don't believe that it's going to last very long. I think that what you're going to find is that the overwhelming advantage that the United States military has in this conflict with Iran will quickly bring these prices back down. In other words, the Iranians, is the situation a little dicey? Yeah, it is a little dicey in the world market when you shut down the Strait of Hormuz, or you try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and that's where 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has always had some control over the strait. Then you're going to have problems. You got oil tankers that are stacked up in the Gulf of Oman who are not going in to pick up their loads. I think this hurts China a great deal. I think it really hurts China a lot, but it will hurt you, and you're going to pay a little more at the gas pumps as you go to fill up your car today and head to work. That is the bad news. The good news is I don't think this lasts very long. So let's jump into it and see what is being said this morning about the ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran. Perhaps the person who is most aware of our abilities in that region is the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who was on 60 Minutes last night.
We have the best intelligence in the world. We're aware of who's talking to who, why they're talking to them, how accurate that information might be, how we factor that into our battle plans, our CENTCOM commander. So we know what's going on, and the president has an incredible knack at knowing how to mitigate those risks. And so the American people can rest assured their commander-in-chief is well aware of who's talking to who, and anything that shouldn't be happening, whether it's in public or back-channeled, is being confronted and confronted strongly.
The American people can therefore expect conversations with the Russians to stop this?
Well, President Trump, as people have seen, has a unique relationship with a lot of world leaders where he can get things done that other presidents, certainly Joe Biden, never could have. And through direct conversations or indirect, through him one-to-one or through his cabinet, messages definitely can be delivered.
Does this put U.S. personnel in any more danger than they otherwise would be?
Well,
The Russian involvement?
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to. Our commanders factor all of this, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
The President said recently there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. What does that look like, unconditional surrender? How will you know it's real?
It means we're fighting to win. It means we set the terms. We'll know when they're not capable of fighting. There'll be a point where they'll have no choice but to do that. Whether they know it or not, they will be combat ineffective. They will surrender.
Typically, the understanding of a surrender is person to person. Is that what would be required in a matter like this?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. Whether they want to admit it or not, whether their pride lets them say it out loud or not, it's President Trump who will set the terms of that. Again, combat ineffective, we're fighting to win. He sets the terms. We'll decide when they're ready or not. We'll decide when our objectives are met.
I see.
President Trump has set those clear objectives, but what I think some folks have been confused by is that our will might be limited, or our capabilities might be limited, or our munitions might be limited. They're wrong, and the Iranians are wrong to miscalculate American will and American authorities and American capabilities and American munitions. We have just now begun to fight, just now begun to surge, and so if the Iranians haven't factored that into who's going to be the winner at the outcome of this, over time they'll start to realize how deep President Trump's will is on this fight.
I mean, we really do seem to have the tactical advantage in this situation. We have not, some would say, in fact, the one who would say it is David Petraeus, former Supreme Allied Commander. He says that, indeed, we have not only air superiority, but air supremacy over Iran right now. And what does that mean? Well, what it really means is that we can fly over and bomb targets inside Iran, and the Israelis can fly over targets and bomb anything that they want to bomb in Iran, and they really can't do much about it. And it also means that we can then bring in, the big boys, the buffs. Now, up until now, a lot of the heavy bombing has been done by stealth technology. The B-2 bomber, the B-1 bomber, which is limited stealth but still stealthy, the F-35, which is stealthy, and the F-22, which is stealthy. But when you don't need to worry about stealth because you have destroyed the ability of the Iranian regime to fire upon our aircraft, then you can bring in the non-stealthy technology, the big boys, the buffs, the B-52s. I'm telling you, when the B-52s arrive, isn't it something? I mean, I've always been amazed that one of the top assets in our Air Force is a technology that was developed in the late 50s and early 60s. The B-52 bomber. It's just a rude, crude machine. It drops a lot of weaponry in a very accurate way, and there's not much you can do about it once those bombs have dropped. So if they can't take out the B-52s and we have impunity, we can fly over Iran with impunity, then the surge is really about to hit them. They really have not gotten the worst of this yet. We've already destroyed their air defenses. And now we can run any kind of aircraft in. We could fly a Cessna 172 over Iran right now without a problem. So, it is very, very different. Well, let's listen to a little bit of what David Petraeus had to say about our ability to command the situation and his thinking about it. This is in an appearance he made on CNN.
The trajectory is very good. First and foremost, of course, they went after the air and ballistic missile defenses, took those down, whatever had been reconstituted after the Israelis took them apart in the early days of the 12-day air campaign. And that's crucial because we don't want to be restricted to just the F-35 stealth fighter bombers and the B-2 stealth bombers. We want to bring in the big ones, the B-52s, the B-1 bombers, and they are flying now almost at will. I would argue that we have actually achieved air supremacy, not just air superiority, but again, I think people are cautious in making that declaration. Second, take down those elements that can retaliate. Of course, along with this, obviously, take the shot, if you have the exquisite intelligence that we had on the Supreme Leader, so many of the other leaders, obviously that was a priority at the outset, and I suspect it determined part of the timing, part of the decision to go at that moment on that day, along with the frustration with the nuclear talks and a recognition that the missile stocks have been reconstituted. Israel is going to go do that regardless. So now we're talking about what they can use to retaliate. We've seen that. All the Gulf states, unwisely, Iran has actually widened this war from just retaliating against U.S. assets and Israeli facilities to going after hotels, airports, fuel loading docks, natural gas and energy, and so forth.
That is, by the way, let me just pause here for a moment to say, that is really quite surprising that the Iranians were that tone deaf. Most of the other Arab nations wanted to sort of sit on the sidelines on this one. And when Iran started lobbing missiles into the UAE and Oman and a bunch of other Arab countries in the region, well, they said, all right, well, we were going to stay out of it, but if you're going to fire at us, we have to fire back. And then there was this thing, well, now that we've got a new leader in Iran, the son of the Ayatollah Khomeini, then, well, it's going to be better now. And, but I'll tell you, the situation is that, quite frankly, they made a real blunder in going after the other Arab states. After the new president was elected, they said, well, we apologize for that. But then they went right back to dropping bombs on them. It is almost like a left-hand, right-hand thing. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. But it was a stupid mistake on the part of the Iranians. A lot of the Arab nations were going to stay out of it, just stay on the sidelines. But once you start lobbing missiles in their direction, they got off the bench and joined the United States in a very, very visible way. Here's more of David Petraeus talking about where we are.
A huge mistake in my view, because they were trying to sit on the sidelines. They didn't let us use their bases. As a result of that, now they're being drawn into it, and at some point they may actually enter the offensive operations. The Emiratis in particular have very impressive capabilities in that regard. So we're going after the missile launchers. That's target number one, because without those, the missiles don't get in the air. The missile stockpiles, obviously, some of those are reportedly underground. We're going to have to pile drive down into those with the massive ordnance penetrator, the 30,000-pound precision munition that we have, and only we have the plane that can carry it. And then the manufacturing facilities, take it all down. The drones have proven to be problematic. Of course, it was a drone that killed our 6 soldiers in Kuwait. And in some cases, we're having to launch, or the host countries are having to launch $2 million Patriot interceptors to take down a $20,000 drone. That is not a good exchange. I just had an article come out, actually in foreignpolicy.com on this, called the drone attrition trap. You've got to have very, very substantial counter-drone capabilities to complement your anti-ballistic missile defenses.
And I think we have a better drone counter technology than perhaps is widely known. I do believe that, and I have some reasons for believing that. All right, so where are we now? What happens next? Well, it appears you would think that the president would not want to take on anything, additional at this moment. But now there's talk about Cuba being next. Here's the President of the United States talking about that this weekend.
As we achieve a historic transformation in Venezuela, we're also looking forward to the great change that will soon be coming to Cuba. Cuba's at the end of the line. They're very much at the end of the line. They have no money. They have no oil. They have a bad philosophy. They have a bad regime that's been bad for a long time. And they used to get the money from Venezuela. They get the oil from Venezuela. But they don't have any money from Venezuela. They don't have any oil. They don't have anything from... People can't even... They land in Cuba. They can't get gasoline to fly out. They have to leave their planes behind. And they want to negotiate, and they are negotiating with Marco and myself and some others. And I would think a deal would be made very easily with Cuba. But for 50 years I've been hearing, as a little boy, I'd be hearing about Cuba. Cuba's a disaster. But I've been hearing so much about Cuba. But Cuba's in its last moments of life, as it was. It'll have a great new life, but it's in its last moments of life the way it is. And but our focus right now is on Iran. And we'll do that. I would say, what will you do? Take about 2 days off, Marco? No, he won't. Maybe an hour. He'll take 1 hour off, and then he'll finish up a deal on Cuba. That'll be an easy one. But it'll be the entire region that we're doing that. Many of you have come today, and they say, I hope you can take care of Cuba, because you've had problems with Cuba, right? You mentioned. I was surprised. But 4 of you said, actually, could you do us a favor? Take care of Cuba. I'll take care of it. Okay.
Yeah, Central American and South American countries were there in attendance at this event, and so it sounds like the president has a laundry list of people he's going to. We took care of Venezuela, now we're taking care of Iran. Next, and we, by the way, we've gone after the narco terrorists. Next up on our list, Cuba. Let's go after Cuba. Lindsey Graham's all in favor of that. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. 22 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Coming up, what a weekend to be an air traveler, especially those folks heading to the beach for spring break. Tell you about a couple of things that went wrong in the skies over the weekend. Coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock Central Standard Time on Nashville's Morning News. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, Joan Jones in the newsroom, and Sam is pushing all the blinky buttons as he does ably so well. All right, so we were talking about what's next after Iran. I mean, we're not even through with Iran, and the president's already talking about Cuba. And right there with him is Lindsey Graham, who was on the Sunday talk shows talking about, get ready because Cuba is next.
If we get in a fight, I want to win it. I want to win it quick. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned.
Yep.
The liberation of Cuba is upon us. It's just a matter of time now. You see this hat? Make Iran great. President Trump said the only way to make Iran great is for the people to take over. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys. We're going to have relationships with new people that will make us prosperous and safe. I've never seen anybody like it. This is Ronald Reagan plus. Donald Trump is resetting the world in a way nobody could have dreamed of a year ago. He is the greatest commander-in-chief of all time. Our military is the best of all time.
And
Iran is going down, and Cuba is next.
Cuba's next, says Lindsey Graham. So, look, we are apparently in a situation where we're going to try to, while we have the opportunity, try to straighten out some stuff that has long been needed to straighten. How long have we been putting up with the impertinence of Cuba? 90 miles from the Florida coast is a communist country that is a failed communist state propped up by Russia and Iran and others, Venezuela. So, if we solve the Venezuela problem, if we solve the Iran problem, and we solve the Cuban problem, you know what? The world will be a safer place. And it is definitely, all of this is an improvement of our national security situation for the United States. So, yeah, I'm 1,000% behind what this president is doing. I understand that Democrats just can't go there because it's Trump. But I'm telling you, I think these things are going to make us eminently safer as we go forward. 30 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Time for the news.
Good morning, now 5:31, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Watch for that fog this morning. It's pretty thick in some spots. We'll have a high of 77 and the chance of thunderstorms later today and tonight. What a weekend to be an air traveler. A Southwest Airlines flight headed to Florida diverted to Atlanta.
Oh my God. Heads down.
Yeah, as armed troopers stormed that plane, they ordered flyers to put their hands up and heads down. Turns out that was a false threat. And then at Kansas City Airport, Channel 4's Steve Mailing says there was another threat. It caused officials to evacuate the entire airport.
FBI Director Kash Patel posted to X, not sharing what the threat was, but only that it was investigated and unsubstantiated. The airport's aviation department told KCTV it was a potential device inside the airport and the parking garage. Planes were rerouted, and passengers in planes that had already landed were evacuated right there on the runway.
Yeah, this happened on Sunday around midday. About 127 flights were delayed. 2 were canceled. Leftist agitators teaming up with Democrats spent the weekend targeting big corporations that do business with the Department of Homeland Security. In particular, they demonstrated outside AT&T storefronts around the country, including here in Nashville, demanding that the company drop its contracts with DHS.
Tearing neighborhoods apart, and what we're saying is collectively no to AT&T and other corporations that are in bed with ICE.
Now, AT&T has long-standing multi-million-dollar contracts with DHS to provide critical communications, 5G networking, and data analytics tools for agencies like ICE and CBP. These actions come in conjunction with the Democrats' refusal to provide funding for DHS, forcing the Coast Guard and TSA employees to work without pay. That is the latest news. Stick around for traffic next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. couple of accidents this morning have been cleared on 24 westbound. One was in Murfreesboro, the other near Antioch. Both of them now cleared. The roadway is open up and moving well this morning. The major roadways also otherwise looking okay. You just got to be careful because there's some fog out there this morning, pretty heavy in some spots. So it may add a couple of extra minutes to your commute. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 37 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. That's right. We've done the time change, and this is the Monday following the time change, which they say is the roughest day for American workers.
It was a little rough overnight on the roads, that's for sure.
Is that right?
Yeah. On 24, yeah.
Yeah, that was really bad. But I mean, people look at this Monday after we do the time change, and there are like more industrial accidents on this particular day, which to me says we ought to pick a time and stick with it. I wish we would go to daylight savings time one more time and then just stay there.
Stay there, yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that this would be the last one. I don't think that will be the case because we've been talking about this for years, and we just can't come to any kind of agreement on what should be done. Joan, I've told this story before. You know, when I was just a kid, this is how old I am, how ancient I am. There wasn't a time change when I was a young boy.
Oh, how about that?
How about that? I know that's how old I am. But I remember when the time changes came. My great grandfather was an old German farmer, and he lived in Central Texas and had a little farm. And, you know, it was a typical farm life there. They would go out and work in the fields in the morning, and then my great-grandmother would make a huge lunch, and my grandfather and all the field hands would come in, and they'd have a nice lunch there. And it was, it was always several meats and many vegetables, and there was a big blowout. And then my great-grandfather would as a habit, he would leave the table at lunch, go into the living room, and turn on the radio to listen to Paul Harvey news and commentary.
How about that?
But he decided that he wasn't going to have anything to do with this time change. He said, no, the time is the time. I'm not going to participate. And that was all good and fine until he missed his first episode of Paul Harvey news and commentary. And then he decided, well, maybe I can make an adjustment here. So,
and good day.
I mean, yeah, that's right. I mean, but it is a time, where we all have to sort of adjust. And, it is difficult, I will say. Even though I've been doing this a lot of years, it's still difficult to come in on that Monday following the time change.
This is hard on families because kids don't adjust. They just don't.
And neither do dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
They still want to be fed on the old time schedule.
Yep, exactly.
That's right. Well, anyway, I want to talk about some of the crazy dim stuff that's been going on. That the Democrats can't help themselves when it comes to Donald Trump. If anything that Trump is for, they're automatically going to be against it. But I'm talking about this is pretty ugly stuff. As you know, recently we lost the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He passed away in his 80s. And they held a memorial service for him. And his son, Jesse Jackson Jr., actually held a press conference before the service and said, hey, listen, everybody who's coming here to make an appearance, this is exactly what he said. Do not bring your politics out of respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the life he lived to these ongoing services. Come respectful and come to say thank you. But these ongoing services are welcome to all, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, right-wing, left-wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. So that's what he said one day after his father's death. And what did President Clinton and President Obama and President Biden do? They came and they made it political. It's like they didn't know that this had been said. They couldn't help themselves. And by the way, Biden said he was smarter than everybody there. I'm not making this up.
I heard that and I cringed.
Yeah. You're going, really?
Yeah.
Because I can think of a lot of people who are smarter than that guy. One way or the other, though, they can't help themselves. Here's another one. Talking about crazy Democrats. New York Mayor Zohran Madami's wife, Rama Douaji, apparently liked an Instagram post celebrating the Hamas October 7th attack on civilians. That's a terrorist organization. Now the mayor says, well, she's a free citizen and her opinions are perhaps different from mine. They're not any different. But you would think that, that would not be something that Democrats would want to associate with, but they are. We've got a big fight going on in the state of Texas for the United States Senate seat there. And I'm probably going to irritate some people with the things that I'm going to say with regard to it. But, here's what I think we need to make sure. We need to make sure that State Representative James Tallarico does not become the next Democrat senator from the state of Texas. And this guy's got some wacky ideas. For example, he said, and I quote, God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary. The statement is part of dozens of claims about God, Christianity, and morality that Tallarico has made on the campaign trail and before he ran for higher office. This according to justthenews.com. The Democrats see Tallarico's firebrand progressive Christianity as a promising tool to help flip Texas blue. Now, we need to stop this guy. And so, the question is, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Ken Paxton, or is it going to be the incumbent senator, John Cornyn? Look, here's where I'm at on this. Most importantly, I don't want this guy Tallarico to win. I want victory. And who do I think has the best chance of defeating Tallarico? I believe it's Cornyn. Now, there's a lot of people who are going to be mad at me for saying that, but I believe he has the best chance. And I don't think we want to see a Democrat senator from the red state of Texas. I mean, the last Democrat senator was the late Lloyd Benson. That's how long it's been since we've had a Democrat senator in the state of Tennessee, and we don't need to start now. So my estimation is that the guy who has the best chance of defeating Tallarico is Cornyn. And so, yes, do I have some concerns about John Cornyn? Yes. But do I ultimately want to maintain control of the Senate? Yes. Do I ultimately want the Senate to remain in control of Republicans? Absolutely. So I'm going to go on this one with Cornyn. I think that's where the president is headed. He has said that he will endorse someone and will ask the other person to get out, but he hasn't said who it's going to be. Paxton's got issues. Paxton's got some things that will be used against him in very effective 60-second ads and 30-second ads. But Tallarico is there for the picking, and it just seems to me that overall, the guy who has the best chance of defeating Tallarico is John Cornyn. So that's where I am on that. And you can be angry at me if you want, but I actually do believe that is the right way to go. Did you know that Tallarico, for example, just how crazy is this guy? At one point, he demanded that there be an abortion clinic in every federal office. I'm not making this up. From hotair.com, last September, the Progressive Texas Tribune gleefully wondered whether James Tallarico's leftist take on Christianity would translate from online sensation to Senate campaign. Now that Tallarico has beaten Jasmine Crockett for the Democrat nomination in Texas, The erstwhile seminarian's progressive take on Christianity has become a big part of the Senate campaign. Tallarico took a particular interest in recasting Christianity around the progressive one's one and only sacrament. Here's what he said about the book of Luke. The Austin Democrat noted, Mary has a vision from God that she's going to give birth to a baby that will bring down the powerful from their thrones. But critically, before she becomes pregnant, Tallarico said an angel asked Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. To me, writes Tallarico, that is an affirmation in one of the most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. He went on to accuse the religious right of prioritizing abortion bans and control of pregnant mothers rather than reducing miscarriages and protecting children through expanded health care access. It's a pretty novel approach to the Christian religion as far as I can tell. So, look, where do we need to focus? We need to focus on making sure that under no circumstances does Tallarico win this coming election. And what does that mean? It means that, well, for me, it seems like the guy who has the better chance of containing Tallarico is John Cornyn. Imperfect? Yes. Is he in line with everything that I want? No. But I want that seat to remain a red seat. And I think that John Cornyn, if he gets the support of Donald Trump, which is an open question, I'm not real sure where it's going to land. But if he does, I think he would understand that he is beholden to that president, and I think it would pay off down the line.
Brian, I have to ask, as a Texas man yourself, does Tallarico just kind of give you the creeps?
Yes, absolutely. I look at this guy and say, there is nothing about this guy that represents Texas. Not a thing, as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm glad it's not Crockett, but I mean, Tallarico may be worse, quite frankly. And that's hard to say, but I think he may be the worse of the two choices.
But wouldn't Crockett have been easier to beat?
Well, that depends on who they nominated, because if they nominate Paxton, they would both have real serious issues that would have to be dealt with. I mean, really, in a statewide campaign, you've got to be concerned about anything that turns into a 30-second political ad. And there's plenty in Paxton, and there's plenty in Crockett's background to do that. But man, as she might have been a little, I don't know. I think actually she might have been a bit more difficult to beat, just from the demographics of it all.
Yeah, it doesn't
I don't
help.
know. Yeah, but so we got Tallarico, who's dangerous, and we've got two Republicans who are still in the mix in a runoff. It is not in the Republicans' best interest for that runoff to continue. So if one will back down and go forward, we would have a better chance. But I just think of the two men, Cornyn, you may have some issues with some of his votes and some of his positions against Trump. No person should have more trouble with Cornyn than Donald Trump himself, perhaps. So if he can find his way to endorse Cornyn, then I think that's the best solution here and the best chance of continuing to be a red state as far as the Senate's concerned. I think the Senate probably will remain in control of the Republicans. That's the way it feels to me right now, especially if this whole thing can be resolved in the state of Texas. But I don't think that the House of Representatives is probably going to survive. I wish I could be more optimistic about that, but it's my job to tell you the truth, not what you want to hear. And so I'm telling you that I think that as far as the House, it may be a really, really tough to try to maintain control of the House. But If we control the Senate, if we lose both of them, we're in serious trouble. Nothing happens. And essentially, if the House returns to control of the Democrats, it will be more difficult. But you got to have the Senate because that's where your Supreme Court nominees come from. That's where your judicial nominees come from. You need to, if you're going to control one of the two, the Senate is the one, I think, that you need to control. We'll call it 52 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock Central Standard Time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up here at 6 o'clock, a couple of guys are under arrest accused of throwing bombs at a bunch of protesters in New York City. Amazing developments from this story coming up here at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
57 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis. Dan will be back next week, taking a week off to be with family, and we're very happy to be here. Look, one of the things that's gone on is that we don't have a TSA. Well, we got one, but it's not being funded right now, and it is starting, they're there for a few days while they were trying to work things out. It seems like they were able to keep the TSA staff there and make sure everybody went through the security check lines at airports and everything. But that seems to be coming to a close. There were 3-hour-long security lines at some airports. Houston Hobby, which is a big Southwest hub, told customers Sunday to arrive as early as 5 hours before their flights. Wow. So, it's got a Hartfield, Jackson. They say you got to go through to get to heaven or hell. In the South, you got to go through Hartfield, Jackson. And they had a shortage of TSA workers at a security checkpoint. What did you, Joan, did I hear you had some information about what was going on at B&A?
At B&A? So there was the flight that got diverted?
No, I'm talking about the TSA checkpoints.
Oh, no, I don't have any information on that right now.
Maybe we'll hear from someone out at B&A.
Yeah, that would be great.
Give us some, I have a way of tracking that down. Let me see what I can come up with. But, it has been a problem. And, of course, now we're headed to spring break. If I were going down to 30A, if I was going down to the Gulf of America for my spring break, I think I'd just drive it.
That's a great idea. Actually, I'm driving to Jacksonville on Thursday, so I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think I would just drive it at this point. I mean, of course, the problem with driving it is you're going to be paying for a lot for gasoline.
Yep.
So, I mean,
yeah, that's true. I mean, either way, you get hit.
Yeah, you're going to get hit one way or the other. But I mean, to me, 5 hours at an airport before your flight, I might as well drive it.
You might as well.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I can be more than halfway there in 5 hours. Well, anyway, we'll see how it all goes. But just be aware that if you're taking a flight, you may need to get to the airport early this week. And listen, we got a lot more coming up here on Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis. Stay tuned, everyone. Hour number 1 is done at 6 o'clock, and time for more news with Joan Jones.
Good morning, now 6:01, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Got a dense fog advisory happening through 10 o'clock this morning. Careful as you take your way on the roads this morning. Also, we're expecting some potential thunderstorms later today into tonight. No severe weather threat with these storms, though. We've got the latest here on the conflict in Iran. Here's ABC News.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Chuck Sievertson. Picking a new Supreme Leader, who's the eldest son of the old assassinated Supreme Leader. The panel of experts Iran's government leaders form when the job is suddenly open. The choice is in defiance of President Trump's wishes. A 7th American soldier has been killed in action in the war. Air attacks with missiles and drones continue across the Persian Gulf area, in one country being hit. ABC's Marcus Moore.
Overnight here in Doha, emergency alerts went out to cell phones again, and then soon after, we heard the now familiar sounds of loud booms over the city. Qatar saying it intercepted another missile attack from Iran.
Israel says it has hit oil refineries in Iran. Out of fear, fewer oil tankers are venturing through the Strait of Hormuz, an important oil shipping lane. Oil prices zoomed to $114 a barrel this weekend. That'll raise gasoline and jet fuel prices some more. This is ABC News.
Other news of the day, a couple of young men are under arrest and accused of throwing explosive devices into a group of people protesting in New York City. And got to watch it here when you're listening to other news organizations. They're calling these guys teenagers. They're 18 and 19 years old. It happened outside of Gracie Mansion on Saturday. ABC's Aaron Katersky has more on this.
This all begins on Saturday with an anti-Muslim protest led by Jake Lang, this far-right provocateur, right outside Gracie Mansion, the mayor's official residence. 2 devices are thrown. At first, the police thought they were smoke bombs, but further testing, the NYPD said at least one of the devices was confirmed to have been an improvised explosive with nails and bolts and screws that could have been quite harmful, the police commissioner said.
Now, the 2 arrested are 18-year-old Amir Balat and 19-year-old Ibrahim Kayumi, both from Pennsylvania. The bombs they tossed didn't explode, amazingly, but they were filled with TATP. That's a substance favored by ISIS, designed to maim and kill. Mayor Zohran Mamdani said, quote, hate has no place in New York City, but failed to mention that the alleged bomb hurlers were part of the pro-Muslim crowd of counter-protesters. We'll keep on top of the story and bring you more. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
After a week of heavy losses, stock futures point to a further decline at the opening bell today. The national average for a gallon of gas has hit $3.45, about 47 cents higher than last week. Energy analysts blame the intensifying conflict in the oil-rich Middle East. Airlines, likewise, are under pressure from the Iran conflict as soaring fuel costs and travel disruptions plague the industry. A 1-cent rise in jet fuel could raise an airline's cost by $40 million a year. Things are improving slightly for would-be homeowners. A new report from Zillow says a median income household has $30,000 more in buying power than a year ago, thanks mainly to slowly declining mortgage rates. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
And Dow futures currently down 562. Could be another rough start. That is the latest news. Stick around for traffic next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. There is an accident this morning. It's on Main Street in Spring Hill, and it's blocked there on the northbound lanes of Main Street between Denning Road and Saturn Parkway. It involves a tractor trailer. If you're traveling this morning on 65 or 24 heading in from the north, looks like it's slow after the merge there. Things looking okay on 24 westbound after some big problems overnight. There were 2 crashes, one in the Antioch area, one in the Murfreesboro area. Both of them are now cleared away. Traffic is running okay. Just keep in mind also that you've got some heavy fog in some spots this morning. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is 8 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and for Dan Mandis, who will be off all this week. I'll be here Monday through Friday, trying to bring you the news and information that you need to know to start your day. Joan Jones in the newsroom, Sam's pushing the blinky buttons, and here we go. President Trump is doing very, very well at this stage in his second term with Republicans. I mean, very strong. Look, I'm going to tell you the way this always works. You have a situation where a president gets elected to a second term, and generally what happens is that about halfway through that term, the trends start to go against him. And there's no doubt that Democrats hate this guy. But there's also no doubt that Republicans still love Donald Trump a whole bunch. Here is Harry Enton over at CNN talking about this. Harry Enton, I don't know why he's not over on Fox. He needs to be, because he's one of the few people at CNN who will give it to you straight. He'll look at the numbers and give it to you straight. Here is Harry Enton on how much Republicans still love Donald J. Trump Jr.
Republicans love Donald Trump more than any president's own party supporters loved him at this particular point. Just take a look here. Okay, own party supporters, 21st century presidents, own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seen a war off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
And what kind of approval are we talking about here?
Okay, so we're talking about overall approval here. How about the strongly approved, not just like, but love. Okay, we're going to look at these same presidents again. Strong approval among your own party's base. What you see here is Trump is the only one who gets a majority at this point in their presidency. Obama was at 48%. Bush was at 47%. You see here Trump at 53%. Not as high as overall approval rating, but still getting a majority of the Republican base, at least in the average of polls, to say that they still really, really, really like him.
Well, there you go. And so, that is unusual, because usually it fades, but it hasn't among Republicans. Republicans love Donald Trump at this point more than Democrats loved either Biden or Obama during their second terms. Well, there wasn't a second term for Biden, but I mean, for Obama. And so I think I misspoke. I think I said Donald J. Trump Jr., not Jr. But Republicans love this guy. They still do. And a good number of them are very passionate about what this president is trying to do. And you're still getting a lot of support from Republicans who are out there talking about the Iraq War. Here is, again, over at CNN, Scott Jennings, who's being called, hey, how can you possibly support this guy? And here's what Scott Jennings had to say.
No, you think this was a good idea?
No, I'm quite for it.
And you think that was?
I think these butchers deserve to die, not just because of the missiles, not just because of the nuclear program, but for 47 years, Josh, they have waged war against Western civilization, against the United States. Their mantra is death to America. They have killed American soldiers, American personnel. They have maimed people, our people. And so if you want to go back decades or you want to go back 2 weeks, there's plenty of reasons to believe that those people that we kill being gone is good for U.S. national security. That's my view. I'm mourned, by the way, and we should say the loss of the U.S. service who I think died in
and if President Trump
noble
makes
cause.
a deal with the next guy down in the IRGC and says, okay, just like Venezuela, we'll have the Chavistas without Maduro, we'll have the IRGC without the Ayatollah. Are you going to then switch and be like, oh, that's great, we're just going to do a deal with the Ayatollah, successor, and the next Ayatollah and the next IRGC, and you're just going to switch and be like, okay, we're fine with the regime because Trump said it's fine?
The president said his objectives are, and I think these are worthy, they're not going to have the missiles, they're not going to have nuclear weapons. If whoever becomes the next leadership in Iran says, okay, we're tired of being punished for missiles and nuclear weapons, that would be a good outcome that I think we would all be happy about.
There you go. So even on CNN, the Republicans are standing by this president and his policy with regard to Iraq. and I'm sorry, Iran. That is a mistake I hear so many people making. It's so easy when you're going down the path to go Iraq rather than Iran. No, it's Iran, of course. So here we go. Yeah, primary voters. This is an interesting story I found over at NBC News. And it goes back to what I was talking about before. A lot of people are looking at this whole John Cornyn thing and Paxton. Who are Republicans going to get behind in the state of Texas? Who is the president going to get behind? Is it going to be Paxton or is it going to be Cornyn? Well, I believe that, we got to maintain control of the bodies, and I want to win. I will take a moderate Republican over a liberal Democrat every time. And I know that is hard for some people to go with. And listen to this from NBCnews.com. A higher share of Democrat voters than Republican voters prioritize backing primary candidates who can win, but poll respondents say it's complicated. As primaries kick off ahead of the pivotal battle for control of Congress this fall, Democrats and especially Republicans say they are prioritizing ideological alignment instead of electability when they pick candidates, according to a new national NBC News poll. See, I would like it if every Republican that were nominated was a bona fide, hard-nosed conservative. That's what I want in a perfect world. It's not a perfect world. And sometimes we end up with Republicans who are more moderate than many of us would like. So is it better to have that moderate Republican who can go out there and say, look, I'm going to vote 99.9% of the time with this president, than to have a Democrat who will vote 99.9% of the time against the president? Yeah, are you going to lose some? Is he going to irritate you? Is that person going to irritate you from time to time? Yeah. But you know what's worse than that? Losing. I'm sorry. I want to do whatever it takes to win most of the time. And I'm never going to get things the way I want them all the time. You're not going to get them the way all you want. So when it comes down to choosing the candidates we support, I want candidates that are going to support Donald Trump. But even if you are a moderate Republican, chances are you're going to be voting with the president about 90% of the time. I think that's much better than going. So, I mean, to me, you got to choose the person who can actually be elected and win. That's what I'm for. And but it is interesting that many primary voters have said that they prize ideology over electability. Hey, we got to take a quick break to see what's going on with the traffic and weather. It's 16 minutes past the hour. Back in a moment. Let me talk about this forecast for a moment. It's the first time I've really had a chance to talk about it this morning. Today, 73, a 50% chance of rain. Tomorrow, 78, an 80% chance of rain. Wednesday, 76, an 85% chance of maybe some severe weather. So we have to keep an eye on that. Thursday, it gets cooler, 55 for a high and a 55% chance of rain. We don't get out of the rain until Friday. Partly cloudy and 66. So let's see. I got to find out exactly what the temperature is right now. Currently in the metro Nashville area, as he pulls up his phone and he's looking at we've got a temperature of 50 degrees in Nashville at 18 minutes now past the hour. We need to go back and revisit this thing that happened with Kristi Noem late Friday. Kristi Noem was in Nashville making a trip as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security when the word came out that she was not going to hold that position much longer. She's been redirected, let's put it that way. Got a new task. And it looks like the person who's going to be Trump's choice, well, it is his choice, is Senator Markwayne Mullin, Republican of Oklahoma, who is, they hope to have him replace Noem effective March 31st. Of course, this is a job that requires Senate confirmation. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes in this political environment. But, you know, we can't fund the Department of Homeland Security. How are we expected to have somebody in charge of running it? I mean, I don't know how they're going to get that done, but we'll see. I mean, I think it was, I think Kristi Noem wore out her welcome. I think she, it wasn't one thing that caused her to lose her job. It was a series of missteps, some of them having to do with the mismanagement of the situation in Minnesota, some of it having to do with that ad campaign that was controversial and was even criticized by Republicans like Senator John Kennedy. And I think part of it had to do with these allegations of a marital a relationship outside her marriage. Let's put it that way. It definitely was reported. I mean, I heard about it a long time ago. I don't know if there's anything to it or not, but it was there. And there was a lot there. So Trump made a decision. Kristi Noem got the word while she was in Nashville making a visit. She has a new job, but it'll be under the supervision of Marco Rubio. And that'll be interesting. Marco Rubio needs a little help. He's got more stuff to do than you shake a stick at. But there you have it. I think that's very interesting that Kristi Noem is out. The so-called Ice Barbie. I liked Kristi Noem. I thought, but she didn't have a good political ear. Let's put it that way. She seemed to be politically tone deaf. I mean, I don't think in America, if you want to be a politician, you don't go about, you know, talking about how you killed your dog. That wasn't smart. And it seems that she just has sort of a tin ear for the. Did she not understand that she was going to be criticized for being the prominently featured on those PSAs that cost apparently $220 million? By the way, that figure is not the cost of producing the ad. That is largely probably the cost of producing the ad and the media buy, but still it's $220 million. And she was out there very prominently. And she apparently, the thing that got her into trouble was saying that she thought the president was on board with that. The president made it very clear in firing Kristi Noem that no, he didn't have anything to do with that. And he wasn't consulted. So Mullin, by the way, was caught off guard. This happened very fast. In fact, he said when he was stopped in the hallways on Capitol Hill and said, "Hey, I hear you're going to be the new Secretary of Homeland Security." He said, "I need to talk to my wife first." He hadn't even had a conversation with his wife at the moment. He does not serve on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, but he does have a strong relationship with Trump. He's still got to get confirmed by the United States Senate, and it'll be interesting to watch how that all unfolds in the days ahead. I like Markwayne. I think he's going to make a good Secretary of Homeland Security. Kristi Noem, she did a lot of good with regard to the border.